But anyway, you buy from Amazon every day. Tell me something that you bought that Amazon, that Jeff Bezos manufactured, that he distributed, that he invented. Did he deliver it to your damn door? Did he drive the truck? Does he repair the truck? Did he put gas in the truck? What does Jeff Bezos do in the great monolith, the great monstrous monopoly that is Amazon, where he should get $122 billion? Right? And now you got Amazon Prime, Amazon streaming. Does he produce the shows? Does he code and update the website? What the hell did he do? What did the king do that he should have all the gold and all the wealth and all the authority? Did the king go out and fight on the front lines? No. You know who fought on the front lines? It wasn't even the knights. It was the peasants. He would go to his noblemen, to his lords and dukes, and say, send me so many troops. And they would go to the farms and say they wouldn't send their sons. The sons of the noblemen would be the generals and the leaders of the army, but the peasants would fight the wars. The peasants would grow the food. The peasants would make the bricks, stack the bricks to make the castles. What the blood clot did the king do to have all the wealth and authority? What did Bezos do to earn all the wealth? Did he invent the internet? Did he invent HTML? Even the things he used to create the website were things produced by who? The people. Who funded the internet? The public. Who paid for the laying of the cables for the World Wide Web? I know y'all like to think this stuff is wireless. Wireless is an illusion. There are cables all under the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. There are wires everywhere. There's wires going into your house, and then there's one little box on a bookshelf somewhere or in a closet somewhere between your dining room table and your laundry closet. That's the wireless part. That little jump. Everywhere else there's wires. And so they give us, oh, it's wireless. Everything is wireless. Nah, there's still wires, and there's still men and women who work for who ain't gonna never see $1 billion in their entire lifetime, who sustain this infrastructure. And they talk about in the past, they said the king had the power and authority because he had the divine right of a king. And now we live under a system of neoliberalism, and we should call it what it really is, the divine right of capitalist. But this system never sustains. This is unsustainable. That's why George W. Bush, Barack Insane Obama, yeah, copyright trademark that, Barack Insane Obama, and now Donald Trump. Every single president that since Ronald Reagan has had to do a major bailout of major industries. The corporations from Jeff Bezos to Facebook, Zuckerberg, they're all on welfare. The major corporations, these multinational corporations, they're all on welfare. Capitalism has never worked. There is no such thing as a capitalist economy. All economies are socialist. What is socialism? Cooperation and sharing. When you go work for a company, if you went and worked in a company and worked as a capitalist, you would be fired within a week. If you went into the company and says, I'm not going to share, I'm not going to work with my coworkers, I'm going to try to get all the accolades and do everything only in my own selfish interest, and I'm going to keep everything that I gain, I know and understand to myself. I'm not even going to share office supplies. I'm going to go for mass accumulation, and then I'm going to try to spread my office and spread out. If you behave like a capitalist in a corporation, you will be fired. You have to cooperate with your coworkers. You have to share information and share the burden, share the work, and spread it around. And all of this cooperation in a corporation goes to the benefit of an individual. That's what it is. Capitalism is nothing more than a leech put on socialism. It is nothing more than a parasite on socialism. There is no such thing as a capitalist system. Look at the largest capitalist economies right now. The United States is the largest economy in the world, and it has some of the highest forms of socialism. Trump giving $28 billion farm subsidies, technology subsidies. Look at how and where the industries get their R&D, research and development. What happens is public socialists fund the research. I don't care if it's an MRI machine, State University of New York, the internet out of DARPA, satellite, radio, television, plasma screens. All this tech came from public funding, public research. Pharmaceuticals, public funding. Everything from insulin to modern vaccines research coming out of publicly funded laboratories, publicly funded universities and research bodies. All of it. And then you get something like Elon Musk and his wonderful battery. Did he invent the battery? Hell no. He took an existing invention and innovated it. That's what they mostly do. I tomorrow can take this ink pen and make some minor change to the ink pen, patent it, copyright it, and then anybody who uses it has to pay me as if I did some wonderful thing for humanity. Michael Jordan, say it all the time. You take Michael Jordan's ass, who's made $1 billion off of sweatshop labor, and you drop his ass in a Nike factory anywhere in Vietnam, Bangladesh, or China and tell him to walk out with one shoe. He don't know how to manufacture a damn shoelace, let alone a shoe. What the hell did he do? To get $1 billion of other people. Profit is theft. But the same people stealing our labor, the wealth of our labor, turn around and tell us, oh, it's taxes. The reason you can't do anything is taxes and government regulation. But this system can't last. Because when you accumulate everything at the top and you extract everything from the foundation, from the working people, you have a persistent imbalance and a collapse. And what's happening right now? All over the world, there are right-wing governments. So people don't understand. In the prosperous times, people were told by the capitalist that the government is stopping your prosperity. And it's the corporations that bring you everything. It's the corporations that bring you these wonderful Marvel movies, that bring you these beautiful phones, that allow you to work. And it's corporations are your friends, and the government is your enemy. And what the blood clot is the government? The government is me and you. And I know y'all don't like to hear this rhetoric, but what your teacher told you in 5th grade civics is the truth. And that's why they want to depower the government, because the government is the only institution in this larger society where the people have the greatest level of direct influence, where they can sanction, reward, or punish politicians. So they want people to lose faith in the very source of their power. And I'm not saying that American democracy and all, I'm not even talking rhetoric. I'm talking about raw facts. You are in a better position to influence your local alderperson, your senator, state senator, your ward precinct captain, your local mayor. I can walk into my alderman's office right now and they're going to hear whatever I have to say. And if I can get 10 more people to walk in and each of those 10 people can get 10 more people, whatever the hell we want, we're going to get that from that office. You try that in the corporate. I can't walk into, we got several corporate headquarters here. We got a huge Motorola office. We got Boeing, have a huge skyscraper here. All these corporate, I walk into one of those private buildings, I get dragged out before I get can articulate whatever complaint I have. So we don't control the government, but we have a greater chance of taking control of the government and influencing and intimidating the government than we ever have of any private industry. And that's why everywhere you look, the media is telling you the private sector is where it's at. Forget about the government. The government's corrupt. The government's incompetent. And every time they say the government, they're talking about the people. And I'm not saying that the government represents the people, but what I'm telling you, if we got organized, we could force the government, and all the time, every time the people have gotten anything, whether it's the end to the 8-hour workday, you know that's a government reform. You know how the people got an 8-hour workday? By lobbying the government and fighting the private interest. You know how they got limitations on child labor and a total ban on child labor in the United States? You know how we got environmental standards? You know how you got regulations saying if you're working at a work site, your employer has to provide you with respirators, hard hats, glove, and other protective gear. And if you buy it yourself, if you got to buy your own steel-toed boots and buy your own protective reflective vest, then you can go on your tax return and write it out, and the government will compensate you if your business doesn't provide it for you, and you have to buy it yourself and get your own protective equipment. You know where that comes from? If you work in a hospital and you have to wear a radiation dosimeter and you're around nuclear medicine isotopes and you're around x-ray machines and fluoroscopes and you get this radiation, that's all government. And the government didn't do it because it loves us. The government did it because the people went to the state. And there were times where people were dragging their local government representatives out of the city hall, out of the tax office, and kick them in the ass. It's happened. So I'm not talking about worshiping, praising, or even loving the government. I'm talking about taking power and exercising power. I'm talking about being intelligent. But anyway, the depth of neoliberalism. This system is unsustainable because psychopaths are capitalists and capitalists are psychopaths. You cannot find and this benevolent psychopaths, and it just really hurts my heart. Somebody came and told me about Oprah's charity and Oprah paying college tuition. And I found out that Oprah's charity had an $87 million endowment and she only gave about $2 to $3 million in payout to the people by collecting tens of millions of dollars in tax write-offs. You don't get to be a billionaire without being a thief, a parasite. I even had an Afrocentric sister I'd known for years, since high school. Positive, pro-black African sister who's in the community fighting. She grew up in public housing just like me. I grew up, and she grew up in the projects on the north side. I grew up in the projects on the south side. And even going to her hood, I was in trouble and scared somebody might figure out I'm from the village. But anyway, pro-black, positive, raised her children, Afrocentric sister. And I have to debate with this sister because she's telling me that billionaires worked hard for their money and it's wrong to take the money from billionaires. And I've never heard anybody say, working people work hard for their money. It's wrong for the owner. It's wrong for the boss. It's wrong for the manager to take their money. Let me tell you, money is taken from you without your consent all the time. And it is arbitrary. How much money you get to take home versus how much money you got to leave on the table for the government or that the business can rightfully extract from you. If you come into work and you generate $10,000 worth of value and your employer can pay you within that $10,000 in the 24-hour period, can pay you $15 an hour. The government, the federal minimum wage, I think is $7. The city minimum wage, I think is 10, 15, something like that. So none of this is written in stone. But I digress. Neoliberalism is collapsing. And because, and something we should celebrate, yay, neoliberalism is collapsing. It is. Laissez-faire. It's collapsing. But the problem is, when something collapses, when something is imbalanced, as the neoliberal global economy collapses, it can fall to the left or fall to the right, which means the people can take control and begin to get their share of the resources. Or, here's the rub. As neoliberalism collapsed, because of the hard work of the neoliberals, of the parasitic capitalists, to indoctrinate the masses of the people, all the problems that people are suffering from as a result of capitalism, they are blaming on the government and on immigrants and on minorities and on poor people. So now that the collapse is coming, people are lining up behind and allying with the capitalists, blaming everybody but the capitalists. So in the United States, as white people suffer from everything from a collapse in agriculture, a collapse in manufacturing, a collapse in their standing, when they're suffering from methadone and opioid crisis, they rally behind a fascist who promises not to move them forward, but take them to a great past, to return them to a past that never existed. They go fascist. The Germans did it. Nazis were born out of economic insecurity. All these right-wing Augusto Pinochet and Latin American dictators. Let's just run right now. Right-wing governments. The people have voted in right-wing governments to rescue them from what they believe is an immigrant crisis, housing crisis, employment crisis, an existential identity crisis. They think that the very people who caused this is going to rescue them from it. So in Switzerland, Austria, Finland, Hungary, Norway, France, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Bulgaria, Colombia, Brazil, the United States, Argentina, India, the Philippines, and many, I mean, the list goes on. I'm not even going of nations that are going further and further to the right. Because they felt, well, the liberals, we voted in Barack Obama. We voted in these liberals, and things got worse for us. When they think it's a liberal versus conservative, a left versus right, when it's really a capitalist versus the people. But nobody's identifying that because the capitalists have spent the last century destroying the class consciousness. Now, in the time up until the New Deal came about because there was a class consciousness. They hadn't completely obliterated the class consciousness. But in the early 1900s, in the 19-teens, and the 1920s, you had anarcho-syndicalist movement. You had communists, very strong and legitimate communist movements throughout the world. And in the United States, the U.S. Communist Party was a legitimate political and social cultural force. And so people understood that you cannot serve the interests of Jeff Bezos and the interests of working people at the same time because we are diametrically opposed. And the wealthy people were not worshipped. The first wealthy person that really mastered PR was Rockefeller. And he would walk the streets as a feeble man, giving out pennies and trinkets and little candies, hard rock candies to children. He was one of the first PR because before, wealthy people were like, screw the masses, let them eat cake. But way back in the early 1900s, they figured, why not let the poor people believe that capitalist works for them? Before, there was no illusion. So they said, you know, you get a 401c3, we'll buy some stock. And you got people sitting there with their little 401ks that got wiped out in 2008 and still haven't recovered. Saying, oh, the stock market got, and every day, you notice how they report the Dow Jones average every day. If you're in the United States, it doesn't matter. Even if you don't watch TV or listen to the radio, if you walk the streets, on billboards everywhere, they're constantly telling you about the Dow Jones average, the NASDAQ, the Nikkei. They're constantly drilling that. Where's the stock market today? Whereas I know people that can't even spell stock, that know where the stock market. The stock market is up, the stock market is down. The stock market it used to be the rhetoric. There was Wall Street and Main Street. And they knew that the people, the masses of the people care about Main Street economics, mom and pop, pedestrian issues. And Wall Street was something that was off our radar of the masses of the people. If you didn't work in commodities and stocks and options, if you weren't in that industry, it was not relevant to you. Because that was a casino. That's where you go to gamble with money. But if you didn't have disposable incomes, you didn't mess with the stock market. But then they integrated the stock market with the real world economy. And everything becomes commodified. Buy, sell, or trade. Everything has to be for maximum extraction. It wasn't enough to work and make a living. You had to work and make a profit. You had to work and expand. You had to work and accumulate. You had to become a cancer. And then these poor and working class people who are benign tumors, I call y'all benign tumors. Because y'all believe y'all capitalists, y'all have the values of the capitalists, but you don't have the resources to do the kind of damage that the capitalists do. And then I got the malignant tumors, the bezoses, that y'all think y'all can be. In order for extraction, the capitalists have pushed austerity, saying that poor and working class people have to do more with less. They pushed this false idea of a meritocracy, saying that every rich person got there through hard work and dedication and they're smarter than you. Not that they're more willing and more tapped into the ability. The only way to get rich, the only way to get wealthy is to exploit the labor of other people. You can't work to make yourself rich. Other people have to work to make you rich. You can only work to sustain yourself. So every multimillionaire, every billionaire, nobody's done $1 billion worth of work on this entire planet. No one. I struggle to see how people have done $1 million worth of work. So, neoliberalism is dying because it is parasite. And if you know anything about parasites, they kill the host. And so we who are the engines of productions, we who produce without owning the means of production, have been tapped out. And many people are lashing out because they feel psychological pain and despair and physical hardship are now appealing to the very people that put us in this position to take us out. They're voting for right-wing fascists. And fascism is always come to rescue capitalism. So what we have to do is promote leftism, progressivism, socialism, and revolution. And we'll get into more details about the solutions and where we're going and how we